it really warms my heart. And I really think it's a beautiful thing that we have this ability to come together and to just hear and think about what it might mean to step into God's story. Not a lot of us out there are doing that in the world when we look around. And this is a group of people that is. So I just want to say thank you for being here on this Christmas Eve. And with that being said, you look around in society and what does Christmas seem to be mostly about? Stuff, presents, wrapping presents. I spent most of last Saturday just wrapping gifts. And I was like, man, is this a holiday about God or a holiday about presents? I mean, because that's really what it felt like. And I noticed that it could be really easy to miss out on the significance of what's actually happening in this season. Over the last 4 weeks, we've been talking in Advent about the themes that are traditionally expressed in Advent of what God is doing in the world. Hope, love, joy, and this week we're talking about peace. And as we've walked through these individual themes, I've been challenged as I go about my week with thinking, how do I remain hopeful despite all of these questions that I have about life? How do I remain loving when I feel so distant from the people that I'm around? How do I feel joy when I don't have the stuff that's supposed to bring me joy? When I'm not equipped to actually feel happy? How do I enter into peace in a world that is so rife with conflict? And I'll just tell you a little bit about what I've been up to. The last 3 days, I went over to visit one of my best friends from college. And I flew out on a Wednesday night because I didn't want to drive over the pass and then get stuck. And what I had over the last 3 days was really what I would describe as a moment of peace. And when I think about peace, I started thinking, man, this is nice. I'm not doing anything. There's no conflict. This is really peaceful, right? But then I had to get on a plane last night, and I felt a moment of anti-peace. What if the plane's delayed? What if I don't make it back to Pacific Keep? I got in at like midnight, and I'm standing out in the cold, and I'm like, what if Scott doesn't come pick me up, and I just freeze to death out here in the 7-degree weather? The peace and the anti-peace kind of flowed in and out of one another. I realized that wasn't true peace, just being still, just having nothing, having no conflict. Because true peace, biblical peace, the kind of peace that Jesus brings, the peace that Jesus is prophesied to bring into this world by the prophet Isaiah and others, that peace refers to something much bigger. That peace is about wholeness. It's about completion. It's about feeling, even in moments of conflict, that all could be well with this world. That all will be well. Do you see the difference? I think we tend to describe peace as this nothingness, or we tend to describe peace as absence of conflict. And this is basically what it comes down to. Peace is about stuff. If I have the right stuff, then my life will be taken care of, and then I don't have anything to worry about. Or peace is only for the powerful. It's those in positions of power that can enact peace. I am powerless to do anything for peace. I am powerless to bring peace. I'm powerless to participate in peace. I just have to hope. And really, what I mean when I say hope is wish, that the people with more power than myself will actually do something to stop some conflict. And what's interesting about the Christmas season is that a lot of what's happened in the church is ritual, right? We go through 4 weeks of hope, love, joy, and peace. And all the meantime, we're wrapping presents and buying stuff and acquiring things, families coming in and out of town, friends are coming and leaving. And it would be really easy to miss the significance of the moments between the moments of peace. It would be really, really easy to just forget that this whole season is actually about hope, love, joy, and peace. That this season is about God stepping into our world and inviting us into His reality. We can easily turn to complacence and compliance. becomes about stuff and those with more power. And if I don't have those things, then I won't have hope. I won't have love. I won't have joy. I won't have peace. And what I think really turns this on its head, and I owe this to an article that Andre actually shared with me, but what shifts our frame faster than anything, and by that what I mean shifts our perspective, is a story. And in Christmas, we lean into a story. The story of a human being. The story of a baby born in a manger. The story of a baby who grew up with no political prowess, no stuff, no money, no presents to anybody. This person was poor. This person was a refugee. This person was overlooked by society. This person didn't have a position of power. And yet, it's his story that captivates us at Christmas. The story of this baby born into this chaotic world of war and empire, where the Romans were enslaving people all across the Middle East, Jesus' family included. This powerless baby draws us into a story that's much bigger than just a person. It's a story of God with us. And today I wanted to open with a story of my own. Would you like to hear a story? Okay, great. So last Sunday I was at an evening service, and we were talking about joy as the third week of Advent. And it was at a church downtown around here, and I encountered a man who came up off the street. He came in the doors of this building. It was very cold last Sunday night. And his name was Justin. Justin was about 6'3", and he was probably about 180 pounds. For those of you who aren't familiar with watching football, this guy was pretty thin, right? His proportions were off. He was a really skinny guy, dirty, neck tattoos, face tattoos. And he came up to me, and I had a moment of compliance, a moment of powerlessness, a moment of materialism where I go, oh my gosh, this guy has nothing. This poor guy. And I also had this moment of powerlessness where I go, man, I hope that somebody else can help this guy out tonight, right? Can do something to change his life. And I started talking to Justin. He came up to me and he says, hey. And we start talking and sharing stories. I'm kind of like, where are you from? And he goes, oh, I'm from Oregon. And I said, how long you been in Spokane? He said, I've been here for about 17 days. I said, really? Where are you staying? And he said, on this corner. I'm just sleeping on the street. I go, oh, man, that's crazy. And he goes, yeah, it is. Hey, it's really good to meet you. I said, oh, thank you. He said, what are you looking for? And he said, man, I'm just looking for some help. And I said, okay, well, hold tight. Maybe afterwards I can find somebody to help you, right? Powerlessness. I don't have the stuff, the equipment. What am I supposed to do to give this guy hope, love, joy, peace? I was sitting through the sermon, and afterwards I was running around trying to grab somebody that might be able to help him at this church, like maybe the pastor can help him, maybe this other guy. And he came up to me and he said, dude, I don't want anybody else to help me. Can you just help me? And I said, sure, what are you looking for? And he said, man, we just heard this story about Jesus giving living water to this woman. The story was out of John 4. And Jesus comes up to this woman who has nothing. And she's drawing water from this well. And he says, I have living water for you that will never run dry. And he said, what does that mean? And I said, well, I think that Jesus came so that we'd all be empowered to live this more full, complete life. And he's like, yeah, that's what I'd like. I said, what do you need right now? He said, man, I need some food. I said, let's go to McDonald's. So we went to McDonald's, and I sat with him, and I talked with him for a little bit, and he's like, can I crash on your floor? I just need some, like, positive influence in my life. And I was like, Justin, no. I'd have to run that by my roommate. And he's like, all right, fair enough. What do I do? Jack, I'm totally lost. I don't know where I'm going. I just need some guidance. I was like, man, this is like a pastor's challenge, right? So I'm standing there, and I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? And then I realized that peace doesn't happen all at once. Peace happens moment by moment. And we had a moment here. And I was thinking about joy and hope and love and how they all flow together. And I drove this guy to Union Gospel Mission. And I said, hey, you can at least stay here, get on the path to recovery. Wrote down some places to go to AA, thanks to Scott, who gave those to me. And I was handing him this sheet of paper, and he's like, hey, man, thank you. I said, no, thank you. You're a great guy, and whatever you're going through, it'll get better. And the dude, he started crying. And I started crying. And then we're like hugging in my car. And like the ignition is running. And we're just standing there crying with each other. I'm holding this guy and I'm like, I am not equipped for this. And then all of a sudden that faded away and I go, this is God. This is a moment of peace. This is what Jesus wanted us to have. And I turned to him and I said, you know, Justin, this is what it's all about. This moment. We can have more of this moment. And he said, yeah, that's what I want. I said, you'll find it. You can get it. We'll do it together. Now, this isn't a story of, like, completion, right? It's not over. Justin has plenty of conflict in his life. He has a lot of conflict. He was sleeping on the ground. He's been competing with people for spaces in town. I'm sure he's been robbed, beat, all kinds of stuff, right? But this moment was a moment where peace broke into both of our lives. I'm not telling this story because it's like I did anything right. I'm telling this story because God showed up in an ordinary moment with two people. Peace was built in an instant there. Hope came into the picture to a man who had none. Joy came into my heart in a place where before I felt weak, weary, powerless. This is what Jesus does. He brings peace into conflict because that's what peace really is. Peace is not absence of conflict. Peace is amidst moments of conflict. Peace breaks into darkness. It is light that shines in darkness. Peace is established by ordinary people in ordinary circumstances, in ordinary time. If you don't believe that, just listen to some of the perspective from the Bible. First, I want to contrast that with some wisdom that you might hear from the world, and that's this. We will never have a perfect world, but it's not romantic or naive to work toward a better one. This is Steven Pinker. I heard a TED Talk by Steven Pinker. He's a Canadian psychologist and sociologist, behavioral scientist, and he said this, and I remember, I heard this TED Talk probably 4 years ago, and I remember thinking, man, what an awesome thing. This is like the gospel breaking into people's homes through TED Talks, right? This is God using unusual means to reach masses of people. But then I stepped back for a moment as I started to believe and live into this. We're never going to have a perfect world. Let's just keep trying. That powered my Christianity for a long time. That powered my faith. That powered my ethics. You know what? Things are imperfect, but maybe I can work towards something better. I don't think that that's what Jesus is telling us. I don't think that that's what God communicated through our entire story from Genesis to Revelation. God tells us something very different. And I'm going to try to spell that out for you by looking at some of the things that God has said through time. So here are 4 of them. First, from Isaiah. A child has been born for us, a son given to us. Authority rests upon his shoulders, and he is named Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. His authority shall grow continually, and there shall be endless peace for the throne of David and his kingdom. He will establish and uphold it with justice and with righteousness. From this time onward and forevermore, the zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this. His authority. Oh, go back. Let's go back to that. Let's just look at some of these things that are promised by Isaiah. This is about the coming Messiah. Someday when the Messiah comes, what will he be like? He'll be an everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. His authority shall grow continually, and peace will be endless. Let's keep going. Okay, Luke, Jesus, when he steps on the scene, this is one of the first stories in the Gospels. It appears in Luke after he's tempted in the desert. This is the start to Jesus' earthly ministry. This is Jesus' mission statement, right? How many of you work in an organization with a mission statement? right? A lot of us do. How many of you have heard of a mission statement, went to school in a place with a mission statement, right? It's kind of like, these are the things we're going to try to do, right? Or these are the things we're going to do. We're going to focus on this because leading is doing, not trying, right? So here is his mission statement. When he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, he went to the synagogue on the Sabbath day, as was his custom. He stood up to read from the scroll of the prophet Isaiah that was given to him. He unrolled the scroll and found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." And he rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. And the eyes of all in the synagogue were fixed on him. And he began to say to them, "Today the scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." This is peace, moment by moment. Think of what Jesus did. Think of what you know about the Gospels, right? Jesus, did he heal people? Yeah. Did he set people free? Yes. Did he have the power to do that? Yes and no, right? He did because he knew he came from God. He did because he was God's son. He did because he was God in the flesh. But as a man, as a human being, he had no reason to think that he was going to be able to do these things. To set people free, to heal, to release captives, to recover sight to the blind, which in Hebrew culture had never been done. It was something they'd never seen, recovery of sight for the blind. Later on in John's gospel, it's marveled at. Who can do this thing? It's never been done before. You can't recover sight for the blind. That doesn't happen. But Jesus did it in ordinary time. Set people free. Okay, let's keep going here. Revelation. After Jesus has come, after the resurrection, we get this beautiful prophecy spoken to John. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "See, the home of God is among mortals. He will dwell with them. They will be his peoples, and God himself will be with them. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. Death will be no more. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more, for the first things have passed away." And the one who is seated on the throne said, "See, I am making all things new." Also he said, "Write this, for these words are trustworthy and true." We have seen an arc here in these narratives that I've just read to you. Isaiah preaching about what is to come, looking forward to peace in hope. We read about Jesus acting in love to bring peace into the world. Jesus himself says in Matthew, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God, sons and daughters of God." He came as a peacemaker in ordinary time, doing the things of peace, setting people free, liberating captives, recovering sight, providing perspective, right? And then in Revelation, the words that we get from God for the very end of time are, "See, I'm coming to live with you in this place. I'm coming to restore your home, our home. I'm coming to dwell with you in your humanity." Just as Jesus did. Just as Isaiah said God would. God says he will do. You see, if we go back to that Steven Pinker quote, which don't actually do that. You can just leave it. Okay, yeah, that's good. We'll never have a perfect world, but it's not romantic or naive to work toward a better one. I would say we will have a perfect world, and it's not romantic or naive to believe that. It's what God has declared from the very beginning of time. We will have a perfect world. We will. That's hope. That's the promise. That's the direction this whole thing is going. And so every moment that you have in this life is a moment of hope, love, joy, and peace. It's an opportunity for those things, to break into this world, because God has empowered us to do it. And if we move forward, let's go to what Jesus says towards the end of his life. So let's go to that section from John. Jesus, when he's with his disciples and he's about to be crucified, because the birth, which we would normally talk about at Christmas Eve, makes no sense without the cross, which makes no sense without the resurrection, which makes no sense without the promise of revelation, that all things are being made new. Jesus says this before his crucifixion. Philip, one of the disciples, says to him, Lord, show us the Father, and we will be satisfied. Give us the stuff. Give us the power. Show us one more powerful than us. Give us the materials to feel these things. And Jesus says to him, have I been with you this whole time, Philip, and you still don't know me? Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, show us the Father? Do you not believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? The words that I say to you, I do not speak on my own, but the Father who dwells in me does his work. Believe me that I am in the Father and the Father is in me. But if you do not, then believe me because of the works themselves, the recovery of sight for the blind, the setting free of the oppressed, turning over the power systems. Very truly, I tell you, the one who believes in me will also do the works that I do, and in fact, will do greater works than these, because I am going to the Father. I will do whatever you ask in my name, so that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If in my name you ask for anything, I will do it. Jesus gives his disciples an incredibly empowering message. If you believe in me, if you've caught the sight that I have given to your blind eyes, if you have felt the freedom of living in hope and joy and peace and love, then you will do greater things even than me. Believe in my works. I did it. I healed people. So shall you. After this, he gives them the Spirit, and he says to them, as he gives them the Spirit, my peace I bring to you, my peace I give to you. Jesus is extending peace to us, empowering us, calling us into this story, because he recognizes that peace is not an all-at-once thing. It's not all or nothing. It's not someday long off. It is now. And blessed are the peacemakers, for they are the sons and daughters of God. That's us, church. Do you hear that? That's us. We are the ones making peace. We are the ones spreading love. We are the ones experiencing joy, and we are the ones living in hope that this world, not that it's an imperfect place and we'll never get there, but that it is moving towards perfection, and we are part of the movement. Amen? We are part of the movement. It's what Jesus came to do. When we celebrate Christmas, we are being invited into God's life, to live with him, to participate. And so I would summarize by saying this. Let's go on to the next. What do? We live in hope, not a wish or a desire. We live in a promise. It's a hope that's not just grounded on like, man, I sure hope Minnesota shuts out Green Bay, which they did. But because that's a desire. Who knows? That might happen. It might not. But the hope that we will have a perfect world. Oh, yeah, it's coming. We're going that way. Live like it. What if we lived like it? What if we lived like that's the direction we're going, right? That's what God says. That's what Jesus says over and over. That's what God says to us through his prophets. It's what he calls us in his prophet, son, person himself, Jesus. And it's what he tells us at the very end of time. There will be perfection. Love, not a feeling but an act. It's active. It's present. It's in the flesh. Love is not fleeting. Love is present. It's with us. Do you hear that? In 1 John, the Apostle John says it himself. If you do not love, you do not know God. To know God is to participate in his love. Joy, not a moment, in orientation. Peter talked about this so beautifully last week, set it up with some great stories about commercials and what they do to us, and jokes about like a bicycle and crossing the border to Ukraine. If you weren't here last week, that's totally lost on you. But listen to the podcast. But joy, not a moment, but an orientation towards life. And Genna shared this in his testimony last week as he came up to us. He told us joy is a choice. It's an option. It's a reality that we either live in or we completely miss and ignore. Peace. And this is my real challenge today, church. Peace is not later. Peace is now. With you, wherever your power lies. whatever stuff you have, because moments of peace happen in this life. Peace is a reality that was brought into our world by God. That's what we were created to be in. And it's where we're going, to a peaceful, perfect future. As we think about this, and as we talk about stories, we opened with one story about my friend Justin, who I met last week. And I don't know where Justin's story's going. Nobody does. That's the beautiful thing. Only God knows where Justin's going in life. I hope that it's in a direction towards perfection, right? Maybe it will be, maybe not. What I do know is we experienced a moment of peace together and love and hope and joy. And I want to share about a story maybe that has some intersection to Justin's, but that is very near and dear to my heart. My cousin / roommate is here today, who's basically like my brother, and he's going to be sharing his testimony with us. So Scott, will you come up and join me? Do we have a mic, handheld? Is that? Oh, okay, great. Hey, man.
Hey.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So, Scott, your story, I think, fits well in with this theme of peace in a lot of ways, and we'll talk about that more. But why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself? What is your story? How does God intersect with that? Where are you? Yeah.
Well, I spent the better part of a decade addicted to drugs, and I don't know. During that time, it is really kind of I pretty effectively burned my life to the ground. I violated all of my morals and values, and kind of pushed everybody in my life away. By the end of it, all of my friends were gone. My family had to distance themselves from me. I was left pretty broken and alone. I was very empty. And I had nowhere to turn or really any idea how to help myself. And I don't know, God was a huge part of that and like pulling me out of that and I don't know, showing me that there is hope. And through like my relationship with Christ, it strengthened me and allowed me to kind of crawl out of that pit.
Yeah.
I've been sober for like close to 4.5 years now.
Nice.
And it's been a pretty cool journey just because I now work at a drug and alcohol treatment center for teens, and I get to kind of share some of that hope and what has helped me kind of get through this. And I don't know, it's been a pretty awesome journey of redemption, I guess. It's been pretty humbling. Yeah,
that's something I don't want to gloss over, the work that you do now at Daybreak. And maybe you can say more about that, or maybe this comes in a little bit, but how have you experienced peace, or like where have you seen peace? And maybe talk a little bit more about that redemption piece or Daybreak, and like how does that fit in together?
Well, I can kind of relate to these kids in ways that people that haven't gone through the same kinds of things that I have can. Plus, I don't know, like just being able to like know exactly where they're at and be able to relate to them on a very real level. Like I've experienced those things and I've felt how you feel, and this is how I got through it. And being able to kind of share that with them is maybe one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. Like
awesome.
Sometimes I just get home and I'm like, I'll just have like a connection with somebody that is pretty unbelievable, and like, I don't know, just like finding meaning and like having like purpose just has filled me with a peace that I haven't ever experienced before.
Yeah,
so,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So Scott will come home from work and he'll have like notes, like drawn in crayon from like teenage girls. They're like, I love you. You've like changed my life. And I'm like, of course, you know. I mean, it's just like, it's amazing to see this. And that happens probably like every week. And I'm like, man, it's never happened at my work. But like those are really good. Maybe could you share with us one of these moments, maybe not using any names or anything, that you've seen peace in the work that you do, or maybe in your own story? Like, is there a moment that comes to mind when you think about it? Like, what does peace look like?
You know, there's a lot of chaos, and it's just like when like something clicks, like with like a kid, and like they just have a realization that it's not sustainable to live on the street and use dope forever, like, and just I don't know, like I can't really think of any like specific time, but it's just like that moment of clarity, I guess, that that happens, and that is really kind of a peaceful thing, just knowing and just seeing everything clearly and knowing truth, and there's peace in that.
Yeah, yeah. What about one last question? You appear to be like one of the most peaceful people I know. I mean, just totally laid back about everything. Like, there's basically nothing that I worry about that Scott worries about, right? He's just ruled by this peace, sort of. So I would say, like, what do you think is the secret? What does it mean how do we live into peace? How do we participate?
You know, honestly, it's just living, like you said, in the moment. Like, I completely focus on just being present right here, right now, all the time. I don't worry about things in the future, like, that are out of my control, like, at all. And I don't dwell on the past at all. Like, all we have is, like, this moment now, and I want to make that as meaningful and as beautiful as I can. And surrounding myself with, like, people that lift me up, like yourself, and that's peace, you know? Like, right now, like, being here with you, like, this is what it's about, like, life now, living it.
Yeah.
Not worrying about, like, if this happens, I'll be happy, or if I get that job, or if I get that car, like, then I'll be happy, or it's just, it's about living right now. It's about being happy now. And I live that. Like, like
yeah, come on. Yeah, it's awesome. Man, thanks, Scott. Thank you. Here, we're going to do something special here. Scott, you can stay up here. Stay up here with me.
All right.
Yeah. But, yeah, no, that's great. I mean, this right here, this is one of those moments, moment by moment, love, hope, joy, peace. We're in that together. At the very beginning, I said, what a joy it is to be in a congregation of people, in a communal gathering, in a concert hall with a bar children's area, right? What a joy it is to be here together and to be stepping into this, to be willing to say, like, maybe I'm participating in love, hope, joy, and peace by being here. Maybe this is part of participating in God's story. What if we just carry that with us into everything we do? We take out the trash, and you see somebody sifting through your dumpster. Is that a moment for peace? It could be. For me, it's usually just a moment of annoyance. Like, get out of the dumpster. But it could be so much more than that. We have these moments, and Jesus came to open our eyes to those moments, to shift our perspective, to recover sight to blind people. And that's what we'll be talking about as we go forward. We've been talking about Advent, but going forward into this new year, we're going to be talking about God's vision, the vision that he cast through his prophets. And we'll be preaching through that. What does it mean to catch God's perspective and live into it? And now what we're going to do is a little moment where we really see, this is going to be a cool experiment in prayer. And Scott, I'd ask you to just stay up here with me just to participate. But can I ask our readers to come forward to the front of the stage here? And I'll take that mic. We have some readers today who are going to be reading a prayer. And this is really, it's the prayer that Jesus read. It's Jesus' mission statement. And this is an invitation for all of us to participate. This prayer is going to be read in 7 different languages. So languages of the world by people in our congregation. These are all languages that God speaks to us in. God meets us in our cultures. God meets us wherever we are. And God meets all of us in our community. And so, as we get ready to pray, I would ask that you just join us by listening and participate in this prayer that's being read today. This comes to us out of that passage from Luke. Would you put that up on the screen for us, Max? From Luke 4:16-20. When he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, he went to the synagogue on the Sabbath day, as was his custom. He stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was given to him. He unrolled the scroll and found the place where it was written.
وروح الرب لأنه مسحني لأبشر المساكين أرسلني لأشفي المنكسري القلوب لأنادي للمأسورين بإطلاق وللعمى بالبصر وأرسل المسحقين في الحرية وأكرز بسنة الرب المقبولة.
Дух Господень на мне, ибо Он помазал меня благовествовать нищим и послал меня исцелять сокрушенных сердцем, проповедовать пленным освобождение, слепым прозрение, отпустить измученных на свободу, проповедовать лето Господне благоприятное.
El Espíritu del Señor está sobre mí, por cuanto me ha ungido, para anunciar buenas nuevas a los pobres, me ha enviado a proclamar libertad a los cautivos, a dar vista a los ciegos, a poner en libertad a los oprimidos, a pregonar el año del favor del Señor.
L'Esprit du Seigneur est sur moi. Il m'a consacré pour apporter la bonne nouvelle aux pauvres. Il m'a envoyé pour proclamer la délivrance aux prisonniers et le don de la vue aux aveugles, pour libérer les opprimés, pour annoncer l'année où le Seigneur manifestera sa faveur.
Lo Spirito del Signore è sopra me, perciò che Egli mi ha unto, Egli mi ha mandato per evangelizzare ai poveri, per guarire i contriti di cuore, per bandire liberazione a prigioni e acquisto della vista ai ciechi, per mandarne in libertà i fiaccati e per predicare l'anno accettevole del Signore.
Дух Господній на мені, бо він помазав мене благовістити убогим, послав мене зціляти розбитих серцем, проповідувати полоненим визволення, сліпим прозріння і пригноблених відпустити на волю, звіщати рік Господнього помилування.
The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. And he rolled up the scroll and gave it back to the attendant and sat down. And the eyes of all in the synagogue were fixed on him. And he began to say to them, "Today this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." Amen. Jesus came and was born, and tomorrow we celebrate that, and today we still celebrate the coming, and afterwards we celebrate the gift of the Spirit left with us that empowers us to be people of hope, to be people of love, people of joy, and people of peace in this world. The light shines on in the darkness. As you go from here today, we wish you a Merry Christmas from Pacific Keep. Go out and be the people of God. Remember, join us back here next week. We're here every Sunday at the Bartlett, 10 a.m. for coffee, 10:30 for service. Sermons from the pastor on our link on our website, pacifickeepchurch.com. And thank you for being here today. Merry Christmas. Amen.
God rest you, merry gentlemen. Let nothing you dismay. Remember